Nobody had warned David Walsh about the smell. The shuttle's doors opened, and a wave of strange air hit him. It carried the scent of copper, wet leaves, and something like burnt sugar all mixed together. Hundreds of different species breathed different atmospheres, and the station's air system tried to keep everyone alive at once. The result was an assault on human senses. "Ambassador, are you all right?" Priya Sharma touched his elbow, her face showing concern. David nodded and stepped forward. He was 53 years old, had served as a diplomat for 30 years, and had handled crises that would break most people. But nothing had prepared him for this moment. Earth's first official contact with the Galactic Council. The 12 humans behind him represented their entire species. A tall figure approached them. It looked like a praying mantis standing upright, nearly 7 feet tall, with green skin and large eyes that reflected the light. When it spoke, a small device on its chest translated the clicking sounds into English. "I am Counselor Thriss. I will guide you through the protocols." The creature's head tilted at an angle that seemed curious. "You are smaller than your files suggested." "Our files?" David asked. "The Council has observed your species for some time. Please follow me." They walked through wide corridors filled with beings that David's mind struggled to process. Some floated, some crawled, some had no shape at all, just clouds of particles that somehow held together. Every single one of them moved away from the human group, not in panic, in careful, measured avoidance. Priya leaned close to David. "They're afraid of us." He had noticed it too, the whispers. The translation devices around them buzzed with fragments of conversation. He caught words like deathworld and category 12 repeated again and again. "Counselor Thriss," David said, "what does category 12 mean?" Thriss stopped walking. Its large eyes blinked slowly. For a long moment it said nothing. "The Council classifies planets by their danger levels. Category 1 is gentle, stable climate, minimal predators, simple evolution." Thriss paused. "Category 12 is the highest classification. It means a world so hostile that sentient life should not be able to develop there at all." "And Earth?" "Earth is Category 12. David let that sink in. He had read the preliminary reports. He knew Earth was considered dangerous by Galactic standards, but hearing it stated so plainly made it real in a way that reports never could. They continued walking. Priya fell into step beside Thriss and asked questions about the station's history. The Council had existed for 40,000 years. It included 847 known spacefaring species. Wars had happened, but the Council had kept peace for the last 8,000 years. It was, by any measure, the most successful civilization in galactic history. And now Earth wanted to join. The doors to the assembly hall loomed ahead. They were 30 feet tall, made of something that looked like white stone but shimmered with inner light. Ancient symbols covered their surface. "These doors have welcomed every species that ever joined the Council," Thriss said. "Some brought war, some brought wisdom, all brought change." The mantis-like being looked at David with those large, unreadable eyes. "What will humanity bring?" David wished he had an answer. The doors opened. The hall beyond was massive, circular, with rising tiers of seats that climbed toward a ceiling that showed open space and stars. Hundreds of species filled those seats. Some sat in special chambers filled with water or gas. Some hung from structures above. Some occupied spaces so strange that David could not understand how they even existed. And every single one of them stopped talking. The silence hit David like a physical force. Conversations died. Movement ceased. A creature that looked like a floating jellyfish retreated behind its podium. A group of small, furry beings pressed together as if seeking safety in numbers. David walked down the central aisle. His footsteps echoed. 12 humans walked behind him. 12 against hundreds. The smallest delegation in Council history facing an audience that had watched species rise and fall for millennia. At the center of the hall stood a raised platform. Behind it sat the High Arbiter, a being named Solen. She was ancient. Her species was unknown to human records. She looked like a tree that had decided to become a person, with bark-like skin and eyes that glowed with soft, golden light. "Earth," she said, her voice filling the hall without any visible amplification. "You have traveled far. You have achieved faster-than-light movement. By the laws of this council, you have earned the right to speak." David climbed onto the platform. He had practiced his speech 100 times, words about peace, cooperation, humanity's desire to learn and grow. He delivered them now, his voice steady despite the fear that churned in his stomach. When he finished, the silence continued. No applause, no questions. Just hundreds of aliens staring at the humans like they were looking at a bomb that might explode at any moment. Finally, one delegate rose, a reptilian being tall and scaled with eyes like yellow gemstones. "I am Ambassador Grist. I have one question for the humans." David nodded. "Please." "How many wars is your species currently fighting, right now, at this moment, on your world?" The question hung in the air. David felt Priya tense behind him. He could lie. He could say none. He could say the conflicts were minor, but he had not come here to lie. "7," David said. "7 active armed conflicts." The hall erupted, not in anger, in fear. Delegates turned to each other, voices rising. Translation devices buzzed with alarm. Some species actually left their seats and moved toward the exits. High Arbiter Solen raised her hand. The noise stopped. "We will recess," she said. "Private discussions must occur before we proceed." The delegates began to disperse. David stood on the platform, alone, surrounded by beings who looked at him like he was a monster wearing a friendly mask. A small figure approached. Amphibian, green skin, large dark eyes. She barely reached David's chest. "You told the truth," she said quietly. "In 40,000 years, no species has ever admitted to internal warfare on their first address." She tilted her head. "They do not know what to make of you." "And what do you make of us?" David asked. The small being considered the question. "I have not decided yet." She walked away, leaving David standing in the silence. The number echoed through the station like a virus spreading through a body. Within hours, every species on Harmony Prime had heard the human ambassador admit to something unthinkable. 7 wars. 7 active conflicts between members of the same species. Fighting, killing, dying, and they had said it out loud, in front of everyone, without shame. David sat in the small quarters assigned to Earth's delegation. The room was plain, a bed that did not quite fit human bodies, a window that looked out at stars he did not recognize, and silence, always silence. Priya entered without knocking. She had spent the hours since the assembly gathering information, building contacts, doing the work of diplomacy, while David had sat frozen by the weight of what had happened. "The amphibian who spoke to you," Priya said. "Her name is Myra. She's a counselor from a species called the Shallow Lakes people. They're considered neutral in most council politics." Priya paused. "She wants to meet with us privately." "Why?" "I think she's curious. Most species here are too afraid to come near us. She's not." An hour later, they sat in a small meeting room. Myra faced them across a table designed for beings larger than any of them. She had brought no security, no aides, just herself. "Your species frightens me," she said simply. "I want to understand why." David had expected accusation. Hostility, not this quiet honesty. "We frighten a lot of people," he admitted. "We've learned that. What we don't understand is why." Myra's large eyes blinked slowly. "May I show you something?" She produced a small device and placed it on the table. A hologram appeared above it. Earth, the blue marble. David felt a wave of homesickness so strong it almost made him gasp. "This is your world," Myra said. "Let me tell you what the council sees when they look at it." The hologram zoomed in. Data appeared around it, numbers, charts, warnings. "Your oxygen content. It would poison 60% of council species within minutes. Your gravity. It would crush most beings. Your temperature variations, your radiation levels, your biodiversity." Myra paused. Your world contains more predator species than most galaxies contain in total. We evolved there, David said. We adapted. Yes, that is the problem. Myra changed the display. A creature appeared, something that looked like a human but wrong, taller, faster, built for killing. Do you know what persistence predation means? David shook his head. Most predators in the galaxy hunt through ambush. They wait, they strike, they kill quickly. If they fail, they retreat. Myra's voice grew quieter. Your species hunts differently. You chase, your prey runs, it escapes, and you follow for hours, for days, until the prey cannot run anymore, until its body breaks from exhaustion. Then you kill. Silence. No other predator in the galaxy hunts this way, Myra continued. It requires a body that does not overheat, a mind that does not give up, a determination that borders on madness. In 40,000 years of council records, only 3 other species have shown this trait. What happened to them? Priya asked. Myra did not answer immediately. She changed the hologram again. Now it showed ruined worlds, burning cities, dead planets floating in empty space. They became conquerors, all 3 of them. The Kresh Empire lasted 2,000 years before the Council stopped them. The cost was 14 billion lives. The Scourge of Andromeda lasted less time but caused more damage. They burned worlds for art, for beauty. Myra looked at David. They composed music while civilizations died. We're not like them, David said. How do you know? The question hung in the air. David wanted to argue, to explain, to point to human art and love and kindness, but the data floated in front of him. The dead worlds, the billions killed, species that had evolved just like humans, species that had probably believed they were different too. I don't know, he admitted finally. I only know that we want to be different. Myra studied him for a long moment. The faction that opposes your membership is led by Grand Admiral Vasht. He commands the Hegemony Fleet, the largest military force in Council space. He believes humanity should be quarantined or destroyed before you become what the others became. And what do you believe? Priya asked. I believe in evidence. I have seen what your species can do when it destroys. I have not yet seen what it can do when it builds. Myra rose to leave. Show me something different, Ambassador. Give me a reason to vote for your survival. She walked out, leaving David and Priya alone with the hologram of Earth and the weight of 3 billion years of violent evolution. Later that night, David finally met Admiral Vasht. The reptilian stood nearly 8 feet tall. His scales were deep blue, almost black. His eyes held the cold intelligence of a being who had commanded armies for 2 centuries. He had requested this meeting. David had no power to refuse. You are brave, Vasht said. The words did not sound like a compliment. Or stupid, I have not decided. I told the truth. Yes, that concerns me more than if you had lied. Vasht leaned forward. A species that hides its violence can be predicted. A species that admits it openly is something else entirely. We came here for peace. Every conqueror in history has said the same thing. Vasht's eyes narrowed. Your species was born in fire. You evolved to chase prey until its heart burst. You survived an extinction event that killed nearly everything on your world, and you are still fighting 7 wars against yourselves. He paused. What makes you think peace is even in your nature? David had no answer. The silence stretched between them. Vasht nodded as if the silence had confirmed something. I will argue for your quarantine. If that fails, I will argue for your destruction. This is not personal, Ambassador. It is mathematics. The probability that your species will cause galactic harm is too high to ignore. And if we prove you wrong? For just a moment, something flickered in Vasht's cold eyes, something that might have been hope. Then I will be the happiest person in the galaxy. He turned and walked away. David stood alone, wondering how a species could prove itself worthy of survival when the galaxy had already decided it was a monster. The alarm was soft, almost gentle, designed to wake beings without startling species prone to panic responses. But Priya sat up instantly, years of crisis training overriding the station's careful design. Ambassador Walsh, a voice came through the room's speaker. Your presence is requested at Medical Bay 7. There has been an incident. David was already moving. He had not really slept anyway. The meeting with Vashti had replayed in his mind for hours. Mathematics, probability, the cold logic of preventing harm before it happened. He understood the argument even as he rejected it. They reached Medical Bay 7 in minutes. A crowd had gathered outside. Aliens of various species stood at a careful distance, watching screens that showed the interior of a docking bay. Smoke filled the image. Fire licked at damaged walls. The wreckage of a small ship lay crumpled against the far bulkhead. What happened? David asked. Counselor Thriss appeared beside him. The mantis-like being's posture showed distress, its limbs held tight against its body. A non-aligned vessel, refugees from the outer systems, engine failure during approach, they crashed. Thriss gestured toward the screen. There are survivors inside, life signs detected, but rescue teams cannot enter. Why not? The conditions. Thriss pulled up data on a nearby display. Internal temperature has reached 45 degrees. Smoke density exceeds safe levels. Structural integrity is failing. For most species, entering that environment means death within minutes. David looked at the numbers. 45 degrees Celsius. Heavy smoke, unstable structure. He had experienced worse during training exercises. We can go in, he said. Thriss turned to stare at him. Around them, other aliens did the same. The murmuring started immediately. Ambassador, you do not understand. The conditions inside are lethal. Not for us. David turned to the other humans in his delegation. Who has emergency response training? 4 hands went up. Roberto Costa, their medic. 2 security officers named James and Hannah, and Priya herself. We need protective gear, not for us, for the survivors. Our bacteria could harm them. The next few minutes blurred into action. Station staff produced containment suits designed for species that needed to avoid contaminating others. The humans put them on. Around them, the crowd grew larger. Species that had avoided humans for days now pressed forward to watch. Ambassador, Myra appeared at his side. Her large eyes showed something new, not fear, wonder. You will die in there. Probably not. The temperature alone would kill me in seconds. David looked at her. Then it's a good thing we're the ones going. They entered the docking bay. The heat hit first. David felt sweat begin to form immediately. His lungs drew in air that felt thick and hostile. Smoke reduced visibility to a few meters. Every few seconds, something in the wreckage groaned or shifted. Stay together, David called. Roberto, on me. James, Hannah, watch for structural collapse. Priya, guide us. They moved into the ship. Inside, the damage was worse than the screens had shown. Walls had buckled. Fluid leaked from broken pipes. And somewhere ahead, faint sounds reached them. Cries, calls for help, the voices of beings who believed they would die. The first survivor lay trapped under a collapsed beam. Small, maybe 3 feet tall, covered in soft white fur. Dark eyes looked up at David with pure terror. It's okay, David said, though the creature's translator was broken. We're here to help. He grabbed the beam. It was hot. Even through his gloves, he felt it burning his palms. He lifted anyway. James and Hannah moved in to pull the creature free. They found more survivors in the next compartment. A family, Thriss had said. The translator term had been gentle ones, a pacifist species with no military, no violence, no evolutionary memory of fighting. They had come to council space seeking safety. An elder lay protecting 2 children. With her body, when she saw the humans approach, she tried to scream. Her voice was too weak. She could only watch as these creatures from the death world reached for her grandchildren. David lifted one child. Roberto took the other. The elder could not stand. Hannah carried her. There's more, Priya called from ahead. 3 more life signs deeper in the ship. The structure groaned. A section of ceiling collapsed 20 feet behind them. "We need to move," James said. They pushed forward. In the final compartment, they found the last three survivors. One was badly injured. A piece of metal had pierced her chest. Purple blood pooled beneath her. Roberto went to work immediately. He had no proper tools, no sterile environment, just his hands and his training and the desperate need to save a life. "I can stabilize her," he said, "but not here. We need to move." David looked at the injured creature. She was conscious. Her eyes met his. In them he saw the same thing he had seen in Myra's eyes when she described the wars of conquest. Fear, pure, primal fear of the predator from the death world. "I won't hurt you," he said softly. He did not know if she understood, but something in her expression shifted, just slightly, just enough. He lifted her as gently as he could. They made it out with seconds to spare. The ship's final supports gave way as they cleared the door. Behind them, the wreckage collapsed into burning ruin. Outside, the crowd had grown to hundreds. Species of every kind pressed against the safety barriers. Medical teams rushed forward to take the survivors. David and the others stood there, covered in soot, hands burned, lungs aching from smoke. And then he saw her. The elder he had rescued stood at the edge of the crowd. Her grandchildren clung to her legs. She was staring at him with an expression he could not read. Slowly she moved forward. The crowd parted to let her through. She stopped in front of David. Her translator was working now. "The monster from the death world," she said, her voice barely a whisper. "You saved my grandchildren." David did not know what to say. The elder reached out and placed her small, soft hand against his burned palm. "I do not understand," she said. Neither did the watching crowd. Neither did the counselors who had voted to quarantine humanity. Neither did Admiral Vasht, who stood among them, his expression unreadable. But something had changed. For the first time since humans arrived at Harmony Prime, the silence around them felt different. Not the silence of fear, the silence of beings trying to understand something new. The medical bay was quiet. David sat on a bed while a robot tended to his burns. The machine worked with perfect precision, applying healing compounds designed for species far more fragile than humans. His hands throbbed despite the treatment. The beam had been hot enough to damage even human skin. Around him, the other rescuers received similar care. Roberto's lungs had taken the worst of the smoke. The doctors said he would recover in days. For most council species, the same exposure would have meant death within hours. Priya entered. She looked tired but alert. Diplomacy never stopped, even after walking through fire. "The council has called an emergency session," she said. "They want to vote on our membership." Now, David stood too quickly, his head spun. They were supposed to debate for weeks. Something changed. They walked through corridors that felt different now. Aliens still kept their distance, but the quality of their watching had shifted. Before, they had looked at humans the way prey looks at predators. Now there was curiosity mixed with the fear, questions that had not existed before. The assembly hall was packed, every seat filled, standing room taken. Species that normally avoided each other pressed close to witness what would happen next. High Arbiter Solen called the session to order. "We are gathered to decide the matter of Earth's membership in the Galactic Council. This decision was to be made over the course of many days. Events have changed the timeline." She paused. "Counselor Myra of the Shallow Lakes people has formally nominated Earth for provisional membership. She will speak first." Myra rose from her seat. She looked even smaller standing in the Great Hall, but her voice carried clearly. 2 days ago, I told Ambassador Walsh that I believe in evidence. I asked him to show me something different, to give me a reason to vote for humanity's survival." She gestured toward the humans. "He did. They walked into fire to save strangers. They burned their own hands to lift children they had never met. They breathed poison to help beings who feared them." She let the words settle. "I have studied the history of Category 12 species. The Kresh, the Scourge of Andromeda, the Third Empire whose name we know. Longer speak, all of them had power, strength, the ability to survive what would kill others. Myra's voice softened. None of them ever used that power to save anyone but themselves. She returned to her seat. Admiral Vash stood. He did not speak immediately. Instead, he walked to the center of the hall where a holographic display waited. He activated it. Images appeared. The same images Myra had shown David days ago. Dead worlds, burning cities, the cost of deathworld species unleashed upon the galaxy. Counselor Myra speaks of evidence, Vash said. Here is my evidence. 14 billion dead when the crash fell, 23 billion during the Scourge's brief reign, numbers so large they become meaningless, entire species erased, worlds made uninhabitable for millennia. He changed the display. Earth appeared, then human history, wars, conquests, weapons, mushroom clouds rising over cities. The humans did this to themselves, Vash continued. In their short history as a technological species, they created weapons capable of destroying all life on their world. They used them on each other. They are, at this moment, fighting 7 wars against themselves. He turned to face David. The rescue was brave, admirable. It changes nothing. It changes everything, David said. He had not planned to speak, but the words came anyway. You're right, we're dangerous. We evolved to hunt, to fight, to survive things that should have killed us. Our history is written in blood. David walked forward until he stood facing Vash. But you're missing something. We also evolved to cooperate, to build, to love. He pointed to Roberto, who sat with bandages on his chest. That man performed surgery in conditions that would have killed you in minutes. Not because he had to, because he wanted to save a life he had never met. He pointed to James and Hannah. Those two carried children through fire, not their children, not their species, children who were taught to fear them. David looked up at the assembly, hundreds of species watching, waiting. We are everything you fear, but we're also something else. We choose every day, every moment. We can be the monsters you expect, or we can be something different. Silence. Then Vash spoke, his voice quieter than before. The Kresh believed they chose differently too. Then give us a chance to prove we're not the Kresh. And if you fail, if you become what the others became, who pays the price? David had no answer. The question hung in the air like a blade waiting to fall. High Arbiter Solen rose. The debate has been heard. The vote will now occur. Each species will indicate their choice: acceptance, rejection, or abstention. The voting began. Species after species made their choices. David watched the count on a display that meant nothing to him, numbers rising in 3 columns. He could not read the alien symbols, but he could read the mood in the hall. It was close. Too close. The final vote came from a species David had never seen, a being made of pure light who communicated through patterns of color. Their vote pushed 1 column higher than the others. The vote is complete, Solen announced. Earth is granted provisional membership in the Galactic Council. The terms are as follows: a 50-year probationary period during which humanity's actions will be monitored. Any act of unprovoked aggression against Council species will result in immediate expulsion and quarantine. Humanity will be assigned a Council observer who will report directly to this assembly. David should have felt triumph, victory, relief. Instead, he felt the weight of 50 years pressing down on him. Vash approached as the session ended. The Admiral's expression was unreadable. You won, Vash said, for now. This isn't about winning. No, it's about survival. Yours, ours, everyone's. Vash paused. In 200 years of service, I have never been so afraid of a species. I have also never hoped so desperately to be wrong about one. He extended his hand. David stared at it. The gesture meant nothing in Vash's culture. He had learned it specifically for this moment. What is this? David asked. I believe your species calls it a handshake, a gesture of conditional trust. David took his hand. The scales were cool against his burned skin. The grip was strong. Two beings from opposite ends of the galaxy, connected by a simple human gesture. "Don't make me regret this," Vasht said quietly. "I'll try not to." Vasht released his hand and walked away. Priya appeared at David's side. "We did it," she said. "We started something," David corrected. "Now comes the hard part." "What's the hard part?" David looked at the dispersing assembly, at the species who had voted for humanity and the species who had voted against, at the weight of expectation that now rested on 8 billion people back on Earth, proving we deserve it. Rosa Delgado had been 12 years old when humanity made first contact. She remembered watching the news with her grandmother in their small apartment in Buenos Aires. Aliens, real aliens, the universe suddenly bigger than anyone had imagined. Her grandmother had cried. Rosa had not understood why until years later. Now she was 29, standing in the departure bay of Harmony Prime, wearing the uniform of the United Earth Exploration Service. She was about to board the ship that would carry her beyond Council space, into regions no human had ever seen. "Lieutenant Delgado," David Walsh approached. He looked older than the images from that historic day 17 years ago, gray in his hair, lines around his eyes, but his handshake was still firm. "Thank you for volunteering." "Thank you for making it possible, sir." They stood together looking at the ship. The New Horizon was not impressive by Council standards. Small, functional, built with a combination of human determination and alien technology. "You know the mission," David said. "Make contact with species beyond Council space. Show them who humans choose to be." Rosa smiled slightly. "Simple enough." "Nothing about this is simple." David handed her a data chip. "This contains everything we've learned in 17 years, the mistakes we made, the bridges we built, the moments when everything almost fell apart." Rosa took the chip. It weighed almost nothing. She knew it carried the weight of worlds. "There are people on Earth who think we should have stayed home," David continued. "Who think the Council was right to fear us. Maybe they're not entirely wrong. We are dangerous. We always will be." He paused. "But I've spent 17 years watching humans prove that danger isn't destiny. We can choose what we are." "You really believe that?" "I've seen it. Scientists from species that were ready to destroy us working alongside human researchers, trade agreements that seemed impossible, friendships that nobody expected." David smiled. "And Admiral Vasht sends me a message every year on the anniversary of the vote. He says he's still waiting to be proven wrong, but the messages are getting longer." Rosa laughed. The sound felt strange in the alien station. "We made mistakes too," David admitted. "There were incidents, conflicts, moments when everything we'd built almost collapsed, but we kept trying. That's what I need you to remember out there. You will make mistakes. The important thing is what you do after." A chime sounded. The New Horizon was ready for boarding. Rosa turned to go, then stopped. "Ambassador, why me?" There were hundreds of volunteers, better qualified, more experienced. David considered the question. "When you were 16, you were part of a student exchange on the hegemony homeworld. Do you remember what happened?" Rosa did remember. A misunderstanding. A young alien who thought she was threatening him. Security forces that almost fired on her. "You didn't run," David said. "You didn't fight. You sat down on the ground, put your hands in the air, and started singing." "It was stupid." "It was exactly right. You showed them you weren't a threat. You showed them you were human, which meant you were dangerous, but also that you chose not to be." David put his hand on her shoulder. "That's who I need out there. Someone who understands that being human isn't about what we can do. It's about what we choose to do." Rosa nodded. She did not trust herself to speak. She walked to the ship. Inside, her crew waited. 20 humans and, for the first time in history, 5 alien volunteers. A young, gentle one who had survived the crash 17 years ago and grown up surrounded by humans. A scientist from the Shallow Lakes people. 2 engineers from a species that communicated through bioluminescence. And surprisingly, a hegemony officer who had asked to join. "Lieutenant on deck," someone called. Rosa raised her hand. "Save it for when we deserve it. Right now, we're just people heading into the unknown." She took her position at the navigation station. Through the viewport, she could see Harmony Prime stretching out below them. Beyond it, the stars. Beyond them, whatever waited. "New Horizon," a voice came through the communication system. "This is Station Control. You are cleared for departure." "Station Control, this is New Horizon. We are ready." Rosa felt the engines hum beneath her. The ship began to move. She thought about the 12-year-old girl in Buenos Aires who had watched humans meet the galaxy for the first time. She thought about her grandmother crying without explanation. She understood now. Those tears had not been fear. They had been hope. "All hands," Rosa said. "Prepare for jump." The stars blurred. The unknown rushed toward them. Behind them, Harmony Prime received a message. It was short, just a few words from a human ship heading into territory no council member had ever mapped. "The story is just beginning." And across the galaxy, beings of every shape and size began to tell a story of their own. A story about monsters from a death world who had walked into fire to save strangers. A story about a species that had been born to hunt but chose to help. A story that was not about fear or conquest or destruction. A story about hope. The kind of hope that changes everything. 20 years had passed since the New Horizon vanished into unknown space. David Walsh sat in his office on Harmony Prime, watching snow fall outside his window. The snow was synthetic, created by the station's environmental systems to accommodate human preferences. A small thing, but it mattered. It meant the Council valued human comfort. It meant Earth had become something more than a tolerated guest. On his desk sat a message. It had arrived an hour ago, the first communication from the New Horizon in 20 years. He had not opened it yet. His door chimed. He knew who it was without checking. "Come in, Admiral." Vasht entered. The reptilian had aged in ways David was only beginning to understand. Slower movements, scales that had lost some of their shine, but his eyes were sharp as ever. "You have not read it," Vasht observed. "Not yet. You are afraid." David did not deny it. 20 years of silence, whatever is in that message will change everything, again. Vasht moved to stand beside him at the window. For a long moment, neither spoke. They watched the synthetic snow fall on an alien station that had become, somehow, a kind of home. "I stopped sending you anniversary messages 5 years ago," Vasht said finally. "I noticed." "Do you know why?" David shook his head. "Because I no longer needed to wait to be proven wrong." Vasht's voice was quiet. "You had already done it. Your species had already shown me what I did not believe was possible." David felt something loosen in his chest. He had not realized how much those messages had meant to him, how much Vasht's grudging respect had become a measure of humanity's progress. "Read the message," Vasht said. David opened it. The hologram that appeared showed Rosa Delgado. She was older now, gray in her hair like David, but she was smiling. "Ambassador Walsh," she said, "I hope this message finds you well. I hope you're still alive to receive it. 20 years is a long time." Behind her, a viewport showed stars David did not recognize, and shapes, ships, dozens of them, designs that were clearly not human, not council, not anything from known space. "We found them," Rosa continued. "Species the Council never knew existed. Some were afraid of us at first. We seem to get that reaction a lot." She laughed. "But we did what you taught us. We showed them who we choose to be." The image shifted, showed humans and aliens of unknown species working together, building something, a structure that floated in space, massive and beautiful. "We're calling it New Unity, a diplomatic station for species beyond Council space, a place where they can meet, trade, learn about each other." Rosa paused. "They asked us to help them build it, us, the monsters from the death world." David felt tears forming. He did not wipe them away. There's something else, Rosa said. Something I need you to understand. The image changed again. Now it showed a planet, green and blue, clouds swirling over continents. This world was dying when we found it. War, ecological collapse, the kind of destruction we know too well. Rosa's voice grew soft. They asked for our help, not our weapons, not our strength. They asked how we learned to stop fighting each other, how we learned to choose differently. She looked directly at the camera. We didn't have an answer, not really. We just told them our story about Earth, about the Council, about walking into fire to save strangers, about being given a chance we didn't deserve and trying every day to earn it. Rosa smiled. It worked. They're still struggling, still fighting sometimes, but they're also talking now, building, choosing. She spread her hands. That's what I wanted you to know, Ambassador. The thing we carry out here isn't weapons or technology or power. It's a story. The story of what we might become if we're brave enough to try. The message ended. David sat in silence. Vash stood beside him. 20 years, David said finally. I wasn't sure we had that long. I kept waiting for the thing that would prove the Council right. The war, the conquest, the moment when we became what everyone expected. It may still come, Vash said. Yes, it may. David looked at his old friend. Does that frighten you still? Vash considered the question. No, it used to. When you first arrived, I saw only the mathematics, the probability of harm, the historical patterns. He paused. I did not account for choice. Neither did we, really. We just kept making it. They stood together at the window. Outside, the synthetic snow continued to fall. On Earth, real snow was falling too, David knew. Winter in the northern hemisphere, children playing, families gathering. A world that had almost destroyed itself, learning slowly to be something better. What happens now? Vash asked. David thought about the message, about Rosa and her crew and the species they had found, about the station called New Unity rising in unknown space, about the story of humanity spreading farther than anyone had imagined. Now we tell the Council, he said, and then we figure out how to deserve what we've been given, again. Vash nodded. I will support you, as I have for 20 years. Why? The old admiral looked at him with those sharp yellow eyes. Because you showed me something I had forgotten, that even monsters can choose, that even those born in fire can learn to bring light. He placed his hand on David's shoulder. The gesture had become natural between them. You are still dangerous, Ambassador. You always will be, but danger is not destiny. David smiled. No, it's not. Together, they walked out to share the news with a galaxy that had once been afraid of humans. A galaxy that was learning, slowly, to see them differently. Outside, the snow fell. Inside, stories spread. And somewhere, far beyond known space, a ship called New Horizon continued its journey into the unknown, carrying with it the most human thing of all. The belief that tomorrow could be better than today. That choices matter. That even monsters can become something else. If they're brave enough to try.